Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Just thought I'd take a minute to hop on it because I'm just sitting at the office and I got an email through saying a customer had, just chosen not to go with our quotation. Now, this isn't a rant or anything like that, but I thought it'd be a perfect time to come on here and explain to people why electricians charge the prices they do, what we charge and why we charge it, and a little bit more of a backstory of how electricians arrive at their prices, because I know there's still a divide sometimes between, because we get customers saying we're too expensive, we get customers saying we're cheaper than other electricians, all stuff like that. And every single electrician has a different reason why they charge what they do, how they arrive at it, and things like that. To start with, firstly, I think really from my research and speaking to local competition, we're pretty average for our prices because we're in the Northamptonshire area. We predominantly work in Northampton, Wellingborough, Kettering, them areas, and then within the whole of the Northamptonshire area. Now, we personally charge £50 per hour. That's our rate. And that is pretty, standard, I'd say. Now, I know to a lot of people, that sounds expensive. That straight away sounds. I used to think that when I first started, because when we first started the company, we were like £25–30 an hour. And you quickly learn you can't survive on that money. So I'm just going to give a little bit of a breakdown of, firstly, what it costs to operate the business and stuff like that. So it costs us, I believe, about £38 an hour just to run this business. That's just to run it. Okay? Now, that does include my salary. I take a very minimal salary out of the business of about £25,000 a year, and the rest of it just stays in the business. Now, per hour, how we arrive at that figure of how much it costs us to run, you've got operational costs, which will be rent, fuel, vehicle costs, maintenance, tool costs. Obviously, our tools will break down after a period of time, so they have to be replaced. Training, we always have to go on new refresher courses. You've got insurances, because we have to have insurances as tradesmen. You've got awarding schemes, so it costs us money to be a member of our awarding schemes. So to be a member of the NIC, EIC costs us money. To be a member of Trustmark costs us money. And then you've got marketing costs. Now, we are a business at the end of the day. That's what every electrician is. Every trade is a business, technically. And the point of a business, no matter which way you look at it, is to make money. We're not a non-for-profit. So we're meant to make money. That's kind of what we do. We've got an obligation as business owners to make money because we have to pay tax on it and stuff like that. So that's kind of how we arrive at our prices. Now, everyone's different, okay? There might be a tradesman who's gone out and got the newest van that's the highest spec that costs them a certain amount. They have to factor that into their prices. You may have someone who's chosen to go and get his tools on finance, which means that's a monthly cost that has to be factored in, and all things like this. Now, I sat down, last year I think, and I broke down all the costs, bit by bit. And you suddenly realise we've got to increase our prices. Because like I say, we were £25–30 when we started, then we went to 35, then we went to 40, then we made the jump to 45 and then 50. And yeah, you realise just to meet up with demand, you have to earn that amount of money. And then the extra bit on top of that is kind of your profit margin. Now, that is never just money in our back pocket. Because the problem you've got as a business, and a lot of customers don't see this perspective. We speak to some customers, and they're not ignorant, but they just assume, well, if you're working 40–50 hours a week, you just times your profit margin by the number, 40, and that's extra money in your back pocket, okay? Now, as a business in construction, it's a very wavy type of industry. So you've got, you'll have busy periods, you'll have quiet periods, and every member of the construction industry is exactly the same. So so when it's a quiet period, we might not actually have 40 hours worth of work to go and do. We might have 25, 30, particularly around the Christmas period, our work drops off as electricians. So we now need the profit we made from the summer period when we were busy to help cover the cost of the quiet period. So instead of making £10 an hour profit in the busy period, if we've got balance out throughout a year, we might only be making about £6 or £7 profit per hour then. And so it's sort of like an insurance thing, to be honest, because we have to cover our own costs. So that's why we charge what we do. And on top of that, you've got tax to pay as well. So we're a limited company, so we have to pay corporation tax. Sorry, that's another factor I should add in. It depends how the tradesman's been set up as the company. So you've got sole traders, limited companies, partnerships, all sorts. Now each one of them requires a different tax system, effectively. Tax system, the way of incorporating, setting up, things like that, obligations. So as we're limited, we've got to do end of year accounts, we've got to do all this other stuff involved, and that costs money to operate. So yeah, that's what they do. Now, the whole reason for this was linking back to why tradesmen charge what they do. Now, another factor I will say will be the years of experience it's taken to arrive at our level. Now, we have to do normally about a 4-year apprenticeship to be electricians. And I don't want to sound like boo-hoo or you had it so hard, but apprenticeships are tough. Most of the time they are very, very tough. So I did my background on new builds. So we did site work. Now, that is physically grueling. That really is. You get up at we worked quite far away, so we used to wake up at 5:30 every morning. We'd get picked up about 6:30. We'd be at a site for about 7:30, 7:45. You'd instantly start work for 8 o'clock. When you were busy, you didn't stop, you didn't sit down for a break. Worked all the way through till about 5 o'clock at night. Then you drove home, you got home about 6:30. And you did that every single day for 5-6 days a week if we were busy. And at that time as well, when it's term times, you're at college, 1 day a week, you're doing your exams, you're studying in the evening. Normally at that age, I started mine at 17, so I was also learning to drive in the evenings, doing my driving test. And then you want to have a social life. It is a tough industry. And you do want some level of remuneration for that, because you're sticking at it for so long. So you do want the degree to be earning a decent income. So yeah, I mean, I personally take a different approach. I try to keep my salary from my business very low, in the hopes that I can keep reinvesting the profits to grow the company. Obviously for a future payout. So that way one day the business will be at a stage where we've got enough work, reoccurring income, that I can choose to take a bigger amount. But for now, it just keeps the accounts healthier. So yeah, that's a big factor. Now, this isn't to get at the fact that cheaper isn't less qualified and more expensive isn't more qualified. Okay, this is the point I was linking back to. Now, it all depends on what they charge effectively. So I know electricians out there, like I say, we're pretty average for our prices. I know electricians in Northamptonshire that charge £30 an hour and they're happy. I know electricians that charge about £75 an hour and they're happy. And neither is good or bad. It just depends on a number of factors. Now, there's a lot of assumptions in the industry that if you're cheap, you're not good. And if you're expensive, you're amazing. And that's not always the case, because without sounding ignorant, I know our work is better than some expensive electricians I've worked with, and I know cheap electricians are probably better than us. Like, it's just personal preference of what you want to earn. Normally, you do find that. You find that... So I will find that a cheaper electrician doesn't have to pay the marketing costs that we do. They don't have to pay the insurance we do. They don't do the type of work that we do, and therefore don't require as many tools to do the work. And that's normally how they arrive at their price. So there's a lot of variables involved. But for example, I know electricians are £75 an hour, but they do solar. And they do big commercial installs. And they need to make a larger expenditure every year on the equipment they use just to do their work. So I know electricians that if they just like doing maintenance work. That's all they like doing. They like doing maintenance work in houses. And because they don't need a large array of tools, they don't need to keep up to date on new training or regulations. They don't have to charge them much. So them, £30 an hour, there's a huge profit margin there for it. But like I say, then you move up a level. So you change a little bit how you do your work. and therefore your profit margin changes a little bit more. And that's just how we arrive at them. So all in all, that's why electricians charge what they do. That's probably, in fact, it's not just electricians, it's probably any trade out there. You will find you have people that are more expensive and less expensive. Now, normally what we try to do, because we're not ignorant to the fact, in fact, we've definitely recommended to customers to use other electricians, if that's the case. Because if we speak to a customer and we give them a price, like a quote, and they come back and say it's too expensive, then we'll actually recommend a cheaper electrician we know if we believe they can do the work, because we're not in this to rip people off at the end of the day, and everyone's budget is different to everyone's preference. But normally how we'll go about it is we'll explain to people what they want, and if we believe we're suited to them, because we have an obligation as electricians, business scientists, whatever we are, that I personally believe it's immoral to force my services, for my recommendations, our quotes on a customer if they're not happy with it, if they're not fulfilled. I couldn't do that. I wouldn't be able to have a clear conscience. If I knew someone had a budget for £2,000 and we were charging £3,000 and I kept pushing and telling them to do it, I'd feel awful. I wouldn't be able to sleep at night. So that's why we'll recommend another electrician. Or more to the point, we'll make customers aware of it. So we'll actually sit there and say, well, we need to do this, this costs this much, this is this much, and make them feel more comfortable, more relaxed. We then offer multiple different payment options through third parties. So we could offer finance, we could offer pay in 3, we'll accept credit cards, we'll do all this stuff to try and assist where we can. In fact, we've got some customers where we've done bulk of the work and the rest of the work's been put on hold for 6 months. So what we did is we said to them, like, look, this is what the materials have cost, this is what we purchased, this is our labour, and we come to a negotiation between them so we can continue the work and neither of us is out of pocket too much. And yeah, that's basically how it is. Now, like I say, normally what I'll say with construction is it is difficult to know what you're paying for. So if you want a fuse board upgrade, for example, it's very hard to differentiate between a cheap electrician who's unqualified and I'll reword this. Differentiate between a cheap electrician that might be amazing and an expensive electrician that might not even be qualified. And it's very hard to find out if they're good, if they're not. So what I will recommend is you've got recommendations, friends, family, things like that. But preferably friends and family that have already had the work done. Something you can go over, see it, and just visually see the work yourself. 2, online search. It's the easiest way ever now. We're pushing so much for our online stuff. Now, you will normally, most companies nowadays, will have a Facebook page, Instagram page, possibly even TikTok, YouTube page. Whether or not they do a lot on them, it doesn't matter. They normally will have a few items on there that can just show their work. Now, just because they haven't posted regularly doesn't mean they're not good. It just means they probably got busy and have forgotten about it. Normally what we found is they post a few online, they get a few jobs from it, they get word of mouth recommendations from them jobs, and it snowballs. Next thing you know, they're never able to sit down. You've also got the fact that Google will normally have Google reviews if they've posted anything on there. You can often find the company on Companies House, check just to prove they are a legitimate company. There's no tax avoidance or anything like that. And then lastly, I will say to use tradesmen job sites, effectively. So we started off the company, we were on My Builder, Check a Trade, Rated People, Bark, all things like that. We still actually use a few of them now. And it's a great way because the way they work normally, customers post a job, the tradesman either has a membership to be a part of it or pays for the contact details on their end, and that's how they work. So you almost, it shows some type of trust from the tradesman, like they're willingly paying something because they want to do your work. They're already committed to that process, which just gives a bit more confidence back, I think. I mean, we still use a lot of them. We've cancelled a couple just because they weren't as good for the work we wanted to do. We've invested a bit more into others and stuff like that. But yeah, that's basically how you go about finding tradesmen, really, if you're unsure. And yeah, all in all, this is just a video. This is how we arrive at our prices. This is why we charge what we do. Like I say, by all means, I'm not trying to create an argument or a debate, but I definitely want to get some type of engagement going. So comment below. Do you think we're expensive at £50 an hour? Do you think we're cheap? Would you employ us for that rate? Would you not? Would you prefer a £30 electrician? I mean, we're yet to find anyone who's cheaper than 25. But I'll also say that majority of £25 electricians, I didn't think their work was up to our standards. But then I'm sure our work is up to the standards of some £75 an hour electricians. So yeah, comment below. Yes, no, maybe so. Would you shop around? Would you find someone else? Would you want to see our portfolio to justify our prices? Stuff like that. And by all means, electricians, comment below and all. Comment down your hourly rate. Let's just say, particularly if you're in the Northamptonshire area or the Midlands region. And yeah, and by all means, click on another video. There should be another video somewhere that tells us what we charge for fuse board upgrades and some other jobs and stuff like that. But yeah, always like and subscribe if you've enjoyed this content. And we'll continue to make more stuff. Yeah, all the best. See you later.